Okay, Tess, hopefully you can hear me. We're going to be doing a quick stream. Recently, Burlison, Burchett, and Luna have all said that staffers are preventing some of the UFO legislation, so I thought we'd just kind of cover that. I think it's an interesting dynamic and a pretty sketch one. So we'll just get right into it.
They don't, well, that's for sure. But there is a process by which the Congress demands disclosure, and that process has been thwarted. And I'm just interested in getting details.
Yeah, here's Rep Burchett on Tucker Carlson. Like I said, oh shoot, I think this should be October 10th, but I'll fix that right now.
How that happened. So the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023, I think.
Yeah.
Required disclosure. That passed, right?
Allegedly. But again, who's going to enforce it?
So, but what did that, do you remember what that act required?
It is, I do not believe it passed. The one that I'm thinking about did not pass in the Senate because you remember I had the bill. It was 2 pages long for disclosure.
What did it say?
And then it just said if it dealt with UAPs, UFOs, it disclose it. If a file contains it, America has the right to see it, unredacted. And Chuck Schumer's was several hundred pages long, and it was celebrated by everybody. And it set up a commission very similar to the Kennedy assassination, which here we are, you know.
So yeah, this is all about the NDAA, which for about, what is it now, 3 or 4 years? No, probably 2 to 3 years have been trying to get it into the, this like UAPDA in the NDA, National Defense Authorization Act, happens every year. And it seems to have failed again. I'm not sure if it's like completely dead right now, but we'll see. But he's going to ask why can't we
60 plus years later and still, you know, they're telling us this single bullet that was, and you're a gunman that they found on a gurney that was basically unscratched, you know, an hour and a half after the assassination in the hospital at Lakeland.
After going through 2 bodies.
After 2 bodies and bone and everything else. And it just, but anyway.
So, but Schumer's solution was we needed a Warren Commission to tell us the truth about
to who can decide. And that basically would just cover it up. And I trust America.
Why would, of course, but why would Chuck Schumer do that? Like, what's his motive? Do you have any idea?
I think his staffers drew up the bill, and I think honestly, in their mind, they probably thought it was the right thing. But here's my thing about staffers. Everybody wants to talk about you know.
All right, here we go. We're about to get into the staffer shit talking. Luna, like I said, Luna, Burleson, and Burchett are all talking stuff about the staffers here. And we got John B here. He says, awesome. And Stanfred, just love the hat. Like a proper Russian panda. Yes, sir. Thank you. I love my hat too.
The swamp. And I always go through this. A swamp is something pretty cool. God created a swamp. I grew up frog gigging and fishing and around swamps. They're pretty cool. They attract animals for good reason. And so Washington, D.C. is not a swamp. It is a sewer. It is a man-made creation. Now figure this, you've got a staffer, and Republicans were supposed to be less government. I look at these, we get these pictures made every year, every couple of years. I don't know why. I've never seen the picture. I'm not going to hang it up in my dadgum office of your committee, you know, and all the people on the committee and then all the staffers behind it. I counted one time on ours. I think it was close to, in one of my committees, close to 50 people. And I guess for the Democrats, we get 49 people. You know, we're supposed to be less government. So you have a staffer, say and the committees are just too big. And too many of these chairmen, the biggest mistake they make is, we're going to be different. We're going to be different. And what do? They keep almost every dadgum staffer. And the staffer is already plugged in with the lobbyists, with the K Street crowd. And they're the ones probably getting a little trip somewhere, maybe going out for a steak dinner, going out for drinks, and they're compromised. And so I can't tell you how many times I've seen a good bill become a study bill.
I completely agree, except in most cases, it's like...
So the staffers are getting trips and compromised in a way. You know, fun fact, I think it counts as a staffer, although I was just in the field office when I was in college for my local congressman, just taking like phone calls and stuff. Never in DC or anything like that. I have a few friends who did that though, but I don't know. I'm not aware of the dynamics over there in DC, how wild it is. I mean, Burchett was just on the same podcast talking about like how many people are getting honeypotted and stuff. I'm sure there's probably weird stuff on this angle too.
Obvious why industry would want to subvert the legislation. Like they don't want the regulation. They don't want competition. There are a lot of different obvious reasons, and you sort of see how the staffers are paid off. I get it. But UFOs, like, is there a UFO lobby? Like,
well, there's that.
Who wants that? Who's paying for that?
I think,
and why?
I think you've got major technology corporations, aeronautics, some of our missile defense people. For some reason, they do not want this released.
That's very weird, because whatever's going on is clearly, or would seem to be, a threat to them.
Well, look at the.
You don't control your airspace, which we don't.
Right.
Why is that not a problem for Raytheon?
Look at the financial disclosure of the people that always fight me on these bills. That's what I would tell you to do.
And if we were to do that, I can think of one.
You see the names of a couple of those, a couple of those corporations.
So it's defense contractors are the bottom line is.
I think
what you're saying is that the defense contractors, for some reason, we can only speculate, don't want this information disclosed.
That's correct.
Well, that's a very powerful one, of course.
It's one of the most powerful ones. That's why we're
Tupa, you got the perma invite. If you want, you're more than welcome, bro. I'll just send it to you. No pressure, though. You might be mid-sandwich. But yeah, so the staffers are running the show, it seems. Let's go to the next one. Burlison.
Where we're at.
We're blessed. Fighting for UFO disclosure from the car on the way to soccer practice. Should we be so lucky? And Tupa did confirm he is mid-sandwich. All right, we'll get you next time, bro. But here we go. Some more. The staffers are up to some shadiness, it seems. We're about to talk mad shit about the staffers in front of the kids on the way to soccer practice. But Burlison, keep it real.
We had the last hearing. I think that most of the people that are going to come forward have come forward at this point. We've shaken the tree, brought forward a lot of the people that are willing to talk, and I think it's abundantly clear, and I said this in the hearing, that it's now time for action. So, which is why I aggressively was pursuing trying to get the UAP, the UAP Disclosure Act onto the National Defense Authorization Act. Unfortunately, and the reason why I was angry at that hearing,
the staffers are messing with his internet.
Which I felt was in the scope, germane to, deemed not germane by the Rules Committee staff, not the chair or staff or the elected official, but by staff on the Rules Committee. It goes to the Senate, and because the staff in the Senate don't really want it to be on, it's not a priority, despite the fact that Senator Rounds wanted that to be on, and they did not allow him to get that on. It went to the floor.
I imagine Sawan and the boys are just hunting these staffers right now. What do you guys think? Do you guys think is the radical element of the disclosure movement going all in to try and dox these staffers right now? I do not advocate for that, by the way, but I do want to know what the hell is going on with this dynamic. Like, aren't they the Congress people? Weird.
And I would say that the reason why Chuck Schumer was not able to get it on is because, why would you cooperate with Chuck Schumer when he's in the middle of having a very controversial moment where he's not cooperating or willing to negotiate when it comes to the government shutdown. So the sentiment and the attitude in the Senate is, why would we give this guy a favor? So unfortunately, that's the dynamics. I became extremely frustrated with leadership whenever this amendment was not allowed to go in the bill, to the point that I was not going to support the underlying bill, and they needed my vote. I pressed them and I told them why I was withholding my vote. And at that time, I got a level of commitment from the majority leader and the floor leader that if we were able to get that bill out of committee, that they would put it on the floor for a vote. To which I think, if it does come to the floor for a vote, I think it passes, because this is something that has been, as it has been mentioned many times, is bipartisan in nature. There are a new number of Republicans who support this, and just as many, probably as a percentage, of Democrats.
What do you guys think, like, Burlison's kids are thinking right now, like in the car on the road trip, and he's on Global Disclosure Day on with, who do we got here? Got Kirk McConnell, another former staffer, Chris Bledsoe, Summoner of Orbs, Ross Coulthart, Ann Brady Estevez, Danny Sheehan. That is Reed Summers, son of Marshall V. and Summers, Allies of Humanities guy, Richard Dolan, and Randy Hayes I'm unfamiliar with. But I wonder what they're thinking. They're just like, oh, Dad's at it again.
Reported as well. So I think that there's a reason why staff have been difficult to work with and difficult to actually get them engaged in this topic. And look, the motivation for most staff, unfortunately, and Kirk has an insight because he was a former Senate staffer, but many of the House staff seem to be focused on their next job. And this is not a topic, and delving into this topic is not something that puts you in a position to get promoted or to move.
Steve Wonder says, I wish Laszlo or someone would confront the main government blockers connected with defense contractors. Yeah, we need a Laszlo hallway video of him confronting one of these staffers, because like, who the hell are they? Not advocating for like ruining their lives or doxing them, but like, what is this mechanism of our government here? And then Tupa said something too. He said, the staffers are the new pharma reps. Yep. Seems like it.
On to a lobbyist job. I'm just speaking what my thoughts are, and why we seem to have a lack of, the appetite to do something. Where my focus is now is focus. So my focus is to continue to try to get that amendment through as a standalone bill, and I'm working with Danny Sheehan on this to get that.
She's not giving up
through the committee structure. That will be probably the biggest hurdle, which means that we can focus our political capital on the chair, which I think that the chair would probably be Mike Rogers, and that would be under his purview, and probably under intelligence, which would be under Rick Crawford, and there may be a component that Jim Jordan has an involvement with, but that's narrowing the number of people that we would have to focus.
So what should we do? Should we do a big phone home 5 for those names he mentioned? Maybe something like that. I feel like, let's not just be on our butts. You know what I mean? Jonathan Seamus is a fan of the hat. Thank you guys for everyone who likes the hat. I love this hat. Red Panda hat. It's kind of my gimmick, right? Easily identifiable. Cool. All right, we got one more, and these are going to be real quick little streams here on this channel, RPK2. Rep Luna, the queen, she also had something to say about these staffers lately. So, by the way, this was October 19th, what we just watched with Burlison. The previous one was the 10th with Burchett, and then this one with Luna was the 23rd.
Yeah, we definitely.
So, it seems like they're all pissed at the staffers. It seems like the staffers pulled some shit. You know what I mean? So, let's see.
We know that our witnesses are putting a lot on the line by coming forward, and so that would also to push for we need UAP disclosure, but every time we try to put it into the NDAA, it gets gutted for whatever reason.
By who?
But it's usually the staff that's taking it out for whatever reason. These little, I call them little trouble goblins. They pop up and they'll gut the legislation for disclosure. Or
who tells them to do that?
I think it's a lot with the intelligence community, 100%, or DOD, whoever's. It's definitely internal though, because there have been Representative Burchett tried to come up with a FAA reporting procedure for the UAP. They wouldn't put it on the floor, and then the UAP Disclosure Act was watered down and gutted. Schumer tried to push for that in the Senate, and it was completely just rolled. So there's definitely an effort, which is why I think that this Age of Disclosure movie coming out is so important, because you have multiple people coming forward that have legitimate credentials. They can't just be like, oh, it's Luna talking about.
Shout out Age of Disclosure. Not only was it a little sus beforehand with Clapper in the game, but we got the main star and co-producer Lou acting like a complete and psycho unhinged maniac to me and my boy Tupa. Quite the rollout. I've never experienced a UFO documentary rollout quite like this. But yeah, there's the staffer update. I don't know what to make of it. I feel like this shouldn't be happening. I feel like it's kind of I appreciate them talking about it, but I don't know, it's very troubling. What other stuff are weird staffers up to in our government? Seems like it's antithetical to what we think our government functions like. Is it great advertising for Lou to be making whole ass threats to us? I guess maybe in a roundabout way. I guess any publicity is good publicity, but I don't know, bro. He hasn't even tweeted about the movie. He's only done this psycho shit from Busch Gardens. But Yeah. Anyways, all right. I'll probably be in a space or something later, guys. Have fun. Catch you later. Peace. Thanks for being here.